Hello, and welcome to a very special Thursday edition of the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. Charlie O'Connor-Clark, joined by Mitchell Tierney, and this week by special guest and, let's say, East Coast correspondent, Josh Healy. Welcome this week, boys. We are doing this on a Thursday this week, partly because it was Thanksgiving on Monday, and we all had a lot of stuff to do that day, but I think it's more important this week to look forward than backward because it's the outcome on Saturday, the final day of the CPL regular season. All 8 teams will be playing simultaneously at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. There's a game in Halifax, so it's 5 o'clock Atlantic time for anybody in attendance at that one. And there's a lot on the line, including the CPL Shield this week, fellas. And that's how we're going to start this week because we need to break down all of the scenarios. Maybe we'll start by just taking a look at what the games are this weekend. There's 4 of them, all 8 teams playing at the same time at 4 o'clock. Pacific against Valor, Vancouver FC hosting Cavalry FC, and then 2 huge ones, Forge FC against York United, the Halifax Wanderers against Atletico Ottawa, and a quick look at the CPL table as it stands heading into match week 28 with 1 game to go. Forge FC 2 points up on Atletico Ottawa. They're both alive still in the Shield race. Cavalry, 3rd place on 41 points. Halifax on 39. York on 38. All 3 of those teams still alive in the battle for 3rd place. And if not that, then at least a home playoff game and 4th place. And then, of course, we've got our 3 teams at the bottom, Valor, Pacific, Vancouver. Valor and Pacific, that game is, I guess, for 6th place. And Vancouver looking to play spoiler against Cavalry. So, here is the overarching thing that you need to know this weekend. Forge and Ottawa, one of them is going to lift the CPL Shield. Forge obviously have pole position, 2 points ahead of Atletico Ottawa. Their magic number essentially is 1. 1 point gained by them, 1 point dropped by Ottawa. The Shield is in Hamilton for a 2nd straight year. As maybe not everybody knows, Forge have already clinched the tiebreaker over Atletico Ottawa. So if they were to end up tied on points, Forge get a draw, Ottawa beat Halifax. Forge have the head-to-head tiebreaker because of that 1 win they had over Atleti in Hamilton earlier this season. So the only way for Atletico Ottawa to win the Shield is for them to beat the Halifax Wanderers in Halifax and for Forge to lose to York United. Fellas, before we get into the other races, maybe let's talk a bit about the Shield race here. Mitch, I'll bring you in first. Maybe let's just start with what your gut feeling is heading into this weekend. I think if you're Forge, you're the more confident team. How likely do you think it is that we do see that Shield lift in Hamilton on Saturday?
I mean, at the end of the day, this is the best case scenario, right? Like the way the league's playoff setup is constructed, there's always going to be some kind of race, but the Shield race is the ultimate race at this point of the year. So to have that decided on the final day, are we going to get our Sergio Aguero moment in the Canadian Premier League? That would be incredible. Obviously, I think the fact that Forge only do need a draw is certainly in their advantage as well. And they're looking to become the 2nd team. Obviously, Atletico Ottawa did it this past week, but to go undefeated at home an entire CPL season. And if they can do that, obviously they have a trophy at the end of the line. So I think my gut is still Forge getting this done. They've been so consistent this entire season, especially at home. Even when they've gone down, the last time they played York at home, I think they went down twice in that game and were still able to come back and earn a point. Like they've just been so good at doing that at home all season. So I certainly think Forge have the advantage in terms of form, obviously in terms of the way the results have shaken out this season. But at the end of the day, like it's a final day of the season. There's so much chaos. There is a lot of pressure on Forge as well because York are coming in and they know they have to get a result. They can't just if they lose, their chances of hosting a playoff game are done. They have to at least get a draw, but they probably have to get a win if they want to secure that spot. So that's what makes it interesting is the 2 teams in the Shield race are playing heavily motivated opponents, and that's exactly what you would be hoping for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, I'll bring you in here just on maybe the devil's advocate side, the Ottawa side. We're going to get more into Halifax specifically in a second, but we do know how difficult it is to play in Halifax at the Wanderers grounds as an away team. Ottawa have been there once this year. They lost 2-0. They're not coming in the greatest of form, I think we'd say. They've won one of their last 5 games. That was, to be fair, an impressive result at home against Cavalry. But Josh, if you're Atletico Ottawa, maybe what is going through your mind this week, and what do you think the chances are that we can have that kind of dramatic overturn at the end of this season?
Yeah, well, I think if I'm Atletico Ottawa, pressure is a privilege, and there's no pressure like playing in front of the Wanderers grounds with 7,000 fans packed in, and of course the home club looking to secure their home playoff match. In a lot of regards, actually, both Atletico Ottawa and Forge are kind of in similar form. I think they each only had 1 win in their last 5, for example. But for Atletico Ottawa, there are some good things that have happened over the last little stretch. You already touched on it, Charlie. They had a very convincing win, 3-0 versus Cavalry a couple of weeks ago now, which in a lot of ways felt like a statement. Obviously, Cavalry were missing midfield pivot Sergio Camargo, who's so important to their attack. But again, to have that sort of performance down the stretch kind of shows them that they can beat anyone in this league. And one of the good things that came from it was Balou Tabla has been very, very good over the last several matches. To have him sort of at the top of his game, and of course have David Rodriguez and Sam Salter, all bets are off, I think, when you're wondering if they'll be able to put the ball into the back of the net, because they've been a force this year, and there's nothing like it coming down the last day for them to try and perform to lift that CPL Shield.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons for Ottawa to be motivated individually. I mean, Sam Salter, whatever number he finishes up with goals-wise, he's at 19. Whatever he ends with is the new single-season goal-scoring record. He would love to hit 20. I'm sure, especially in front of the kitchen in Halifax where he used to play. That would be a big moment for him. David Rodriguez in Ottawa, by the way, he's got 9 assists this year. If he gets one more, then he's set a new single-season record. He tied Sean Rea, I believe, back in 2022. Again, Sean Rea watching from the Wanderers side if he does that. Even if Rodriguez were to end up with one of each, then he'd be the first 10-goal, 10-assist season in CPL history. It's been a lot of fun watching this Atletico Ottawa attack this year, but it's going to be a lot of fun watching how this title race in the last day plays out in general. We don't have a helicopter going between Halifax and Hamilton with a trophy, but we do know for sure there will be a shield lift in either city, depending on who wins the Shield. And obviously, the benefits that go with that, CONCACAF Champions Cup spot, first seed in the playoffs, all of that means a lot. And before we do move on from the top of the table, I think it is worth mentioning, Mitch, that the Shield race is different from how it's been in the last few years. This is, I believe, the first time that we're going to see it officially decided on the final day of the season. Like, the closest we really got was 2022, I think, when Ottawa won it in the last weekend, but I believe they went into their last game of the season knowing that they'd finished first place. Last year, Forge won it a few weeks before. The year before that, Cavalry won it almost a month before the end of the season, I think. Mitch, maybe my question is this. Heading into the playoffs, playing that first home playoff game to start things out, the last 2 years we've seen the first seed come out kind of poor in that first game of the playoffs. Do you think that there's anything to, staying at the top of your game in the last few games of the season, maybe helping you go into that game with a little bit more momentum this time?
I think so. Like, again, that's a great point where, you look at Forge last year, Cavalry the year before, like they were able to take their foot off the gas a little bit, having, not lifted the Shield necessarily, but clinched the Shield much earlier in the run-in. So I think that there is a point here where, the way that Forge and Atletico Ottawa have pushed each other this entire season has elevated the levels. And I was looking today, I think it's been 11 straight match weeks that Forge has been in first and Ottawa has been right behind them in second. Like, this has been the race to the finish. Like, they've been so neck and neck this entire time. That gap has grown and shrunk throughout. But yeah, I think it is a good point that this is a year where whoever lifts that Shield has been elevated to a new standard by the team directly behind them, chasing them. So, and just the fact how well the matches have been against these two teams. They've known for a while, really, who's going to be those two sides in that final. Like, there's no question as to who is finishing first, second for, I think, some time now. So
Yeah.
I think all those elements, that 1-2 game is going to be as good as I think it's ever been for that reason. And I think whichever team is hosting that game, again, we talked about it. One of them's undefeated at home. One of them could be undefeated at home. That's a huge advantage for what they've done all year.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week, how important home field has been this year in particular, and how important it's been in elimination games in the playoffs the last 2 years. So I think both teams will be quite desperate to host that final going into that 1-2 game. And that, either way, that's going to be a great game. These two teams have put some really, really impressive and entertaining games against each other together this year. Ottawa still haven't managed to beat Forge this year, which is a huge motivator for them. We all remember what the final was like in Ottawa in 2022. That was a very, very special evening. And I'm sure that Atletico would love to replicate that. Maybe from an off-pitch perspective, they'd certainly love to win it this time. But anyway, whichever city we're in for that 1-2 game, the championship semifinal, that's going to be a great game. But we have more business to get to first. Let's go further down the table and just take a look at what else is on the is at stake in the outcome this weekend. The third, fourth, and fifth spots are up for grabs between, currently in order, Cavalry FC, the Halifax Wanderers, and York United. York kind of gave Halifax a lifeline over the weekend. They played quite poorly, really, against Pacific FC on Thursday night, went down 2-0, got a point out of it, but gave Halifax a chance to leapfrog them into fourth with that win against Valor on Saturday, which kind of gives Halifax pole position for that fourth place spot at least in the home game. Here's we're not going to go through every scenario in terms of how this can play out, because I've got a truly, truly unhinged spreadsheet on my left over here on my other screen. And it would drive all of us to madness if I tried to explain all of it.
If you look in the back, there's a bunch of pins and threads that Charlie's put together to figure out all these scenarios.
And believe me, it basically did take that kind of thing to double and triple and quadruple check these with the help of our football department, because it's very confusing. Basically, here's the most important things to know. If Cavalry win, it's over. They're in third place. The only way for Halifax or York to finish third is if they were to win and essentially the other two teams don't. I mean, if Halifax win and Cavalry don't, then Halifax can finish third. York need to win, and they need Halifax and Cavalry not to. That's all. It's pretty simple. Maybe just worth noting quickly the tiebreakers and who owns the head-to-head between these sides. Cavalry hold the head-to-head over the Halifax Wanderers. York hold the head-to-head over Cavalry, and Halifax own it over York. So we've got quite the rock, paper, scissors going there. That said, there is a scenario where Cavalry and Halifax could finish tied on points. If Halifax win, Cavalry tie. Halifax would actually finish in third in that situation because they would have more wins. That's all very confusing. There's a lot to think about there, and I'm sure we won't really understand who's doing what until like at least the 70th minute on Saturday afternoon. But Josh, these are three teams playing in different games. I know we say there's no scoreboard watching on the last day of the season, but there's definitely some scoreboard watching on the last day of the season in this situation. Josh, maybe I'll just open it up to you broadly, and however you want to take this. Just what are you looking for this weekend? What are you most excited about in kind of this battle between these three teams?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, obviously, just being based on the East Coast, I'm excited to see what happens with the Wanderers, in so much as, they need a home match, same as York United. Both clubs have been very good at home this year. That's where they've kind of picked up the lion's share of their points. So I think any time where you have to head on the road in the playoffs, especially with how tightly packed the schedule is for that fourth, fifth place match, that's a huge disadvantage and is really hard to do. I mean, Pacific in 2023 somehow managed to win, fly across the country and beat the Wanderers here, but I think that's an outlier. So it's going to be really interesting to see again, both for York and the Wanderers. They're facing opponents who are highly motivated in terms of trying to get the Shield. So those are probably the two biggest. Who is going to get the home advantage between the two of them. And even if one of them is able to finish up top and third and somehow knock the Cavs, there is a lot of pressure on Cavalry as well. I mean, they are in pole position, of course, and it's just, can they find that win? Arguably, out of the top three clubs right now, they're maybe in the best form. They've got 2 wins in the last few matches, and Ali Musi has been kind of firing on all cylinders as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you just think of, you mentioned the kind of tight turnaround of the 4-5 knockout match that comes very quickly after the end of the season. Say it was York that finished 5th, and they were facing the prospect of going to Halifax or Cavalry, and then from there across the country to Cavalry or Halifax. That is a tight turnaround and a very difficult gauntlet to run if you're a York team. And York only have 3 wins away from home all season. Again, Halifax 7-3-3 at home this year. They have beaten Atletico Ottawa at home this year, so certainly do not count them out. Josh, I'll come right back to you here because I put Mitch on a spot at the start of the show, so I'll put you on a spot here. Between these 3 teams, Cavalry, Halifax, York, playing in different games, one of them playing against an eliminated team, 2 of them playing against teams in a title race. What does your gut tell you based on recent form and what you know about these teams? What you think is the most likely thing that we might see this weekend?
Yeah, I think Cavalry is most likely to finish third. As you mentioned, they're the only one who's facing a club who is already out of the mix, as it were. And, it's going to be a tall task, I think, for both the Wanderers and York United to dispatch the Shield chasers, because, you just know that both Forge and Atletico Ottawa are going to play their best lineups, and they're going to throw it all out there and play some attacking football. And I think there'll be fantastic matches. Cavalry's maybe the quieter match of that lineup. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them end up third at the end of the day. But who knows? That's why we play the matches, right?
Absolutely. I will give a little love to Vancouver FC at the moment. By the way, congratulations, CONCACAF Champions Cup qualifiers officially this week. That is a truly remarkable story in North American football. But this Vancouver FC team is, I believe, unbeaten in 5, or is it 6? Yeah, Mitchell's got his hand up with 5. Yeah, it's 5. They could make it 6. They've only lost to Cavalry once this year, and they've played them 5 times, including 2 in a Canadian Championship. Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Can you do your like Sesame Street laugh as well to help us with the counting? Okay. Now, Vancouver have genuinely played Cavalry very hard this year. They've got 4 draws between them, and the only time that Cavalry beat Vancouver was that 5-4 just insanity at Atco Field. I think that's the most recent time they met as well. These are 2 teams that we actually kind of, underratedly have a bit of a rivalry going. They don't seem to like each other very much, especially from that kind of Canadian Championship tie, where obviously Vancouver knocked them out on penalties. So I wouldn't call that game kind of a given just yet. I do think Vancouver has a lot to play for at home as well. So there is kind of a bit of a storyline. By the way, Vancouver do need 3 points to avoid being the lowest points total in CPL history. There's certainly we talk about records that are on the line on Saturday. That's one that Vancouver would love to avoid. They're on 20 points, and I believe the lowest total is 22. That said, beating Cavalry is very difficult. Mitch, just to you again here, though, in this 3-4-5 race, maybe what are some of the factors at play that you're thinking of? What are maybe some of the biggest things that could swing this on Saturday?
Well, I think one thing to note, and we talked about Cavalry maybe having on paper the easiest matchup here. They haven't won on the road since July 20th. Like, it's been a while. We talked a lot about Halifax's lengthy record without a road win, and obviously they were finally able to get one this past weekend. But that's been kind of normal for Halifax in their kind of history. This is pretty abnormal for a Cavalry side that have traditionally been quite good on the road. And, Tommy Wilden Jr. was even asked about it because it's so diametrically opposed to their home form, where they've scored so many goals, had so many big wins recently, and it's something that they're questioning right now. And we know if they go into the playoffs, obviously, it's looking pretty likely they'll start the playoffs at home in whatever scenario that is, although it's not, set in stone. But they're going to have to play some of those big playoff games on the road. So getting one big road win before the end of the season would be so huge for this team, not just for what it would mean in the table and getting that third place, but for confidence-wise going into the playoffs and knowing that they're going to have to take results on the road.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. There's only one scenario, by the way, where Cavalry could finish fifth, and that's if they lose, Halifax win, and York win. In that scenario, it would be Halifax third, York fourth, Cavalry fifth. The Cavs definitely do not want to play a midweek knockout match at York Lions Stadium. That is not what they want. I do think that probably there is the most pressure on them to come third, just considering their history and their form over the last few years. The fact that they're the defending champions, very, very, very difficult to defend the North Star Cup if you have that full gauntlet to run and don't get to set foot on home soil even once. In fact, we've never seen a team other than the top two in the final in this format. Maybe this is the year. I think that would be a lot of fun if we saw that. We love a little bit of an upset, but we do know how difficult it is. But anyway, gents, thank you very much. I think that we've maybe quite succinctly covered the biggest things that we're watching this weekend. There are so many kind of minor storylines and other things to think about. We've talked about the individual accolades. This is also the final weekend, technically, where players can make their last case to be nominated for a CPL award. I think those are probably just about almost wrapped up, but there are players who could maybe make a final case. I think maybe the manager of the year or the coach of the year award. You could certainly make a better case for yourself if you finish third this weekend versus fourth or fifth. Couple things on the line there, but above all, we've got a trophy to give out on Saturday. We don't know where it's going to be. We don't know who's going to lift it. We do know it is going to be lifted on Saturday around about 6:15 p.m. Eastern time, I think we'd say. And make sure you don't miss any of it. All 4 games live on OneSoccer and broadcast nationally on TSN. You'll be able to see full whip-around coverage of all the biggest moments in the outcome. And then after that, we'll be back with you next week to make sure that we preview what should be a fascinating playoff race. But until then, enjoy the games, enjoy the trophy lift, wherever that may be, and we will see you next week.
For months, they've fought for every inch, every point, every moment that mattered. Now, every team takes the pitch simultaneously. Every second defines what comes next. No scoreboard watching, no time for doubt. Just 90 minutes to define your season, to make history or watch it slip away. Pacific, Valor, Vancouver Cavalry, Forge, York, Halifax, Ottawa. The Shield hangs in the balance. The outcome, Saturday on TSN and OneSoccer.